At an early age, children are egocentric. We feel like we failed them until we grow up and we start to realize, no, I didn't fail them. At 8 years old, 9 years old, I didn't say, oh, gee, my dad needs Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see that. All I saw was that if I was a better kid, maybe my father wouldn't be doing these things. That is what I want to bring home here. Even parents that work all the time and are trying to bring a better life to their children, don't assume you know how your child sees this. The child may feel, why isn't mom and dad paying more attention to me? What's wrong with me? So be aware of the messages that we're giving our children that we're not aware of. We don't have to give our children quantity time, but give them quality time.
Welcome to Radiant Mom Rising. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and in each episode, we dive into amazing stories, insights, and conversations that help moms like you chase your dreams and embrace your worth. Let's rise and shine together. Welcome to another inspiring episode of Radiant Mom Rising. Before getting into this episode, I just want to share a little experience I recently had. I met this woman who told me that she encourages her clients to ask God or the universe for something that they want to manifest, and then ask them to give them a sign. And so I decided to do that recently, and I've been working on manifestation, and I love it. And I ask God for something that I've been desiring for, and then I ask him to show me a sign that it will come into fruition soon by showing me a yellow butterfly. And so the neat thing is today when we were playing pickleball, while we were in a game, my husband happened to point out like this small yellow butterfly that actually flew across our court. And I thought, okay, ooh, neat. But then right after that same game, my Uncle Michael, who was there, went and said, oh, I noticed you said something about a butterfly, and I didn't know if you like butterflies, but I just found this. And it was a little patch that I guess somebody lost, and it was of a yellow butterfly. And my heart sank because I'm like, wow, it was just so beautiful to get that confirmation and to see that I am on the right path and that God is letting me know, yes, I hear you and it is done. And again, I want to just encourage anyone listening, do that. Ask for what you want, put it out there, and then ask for a sign for confirmation for it. And then tell me, let me know, what are the outcomes of that? I can't wait to hear from you all. Please let me know. So today, we're going to dive deep into the transformative journey of healing and self-awareness with a remarkable guest. As a recovering addict and a successful businessman, our guest shares his profound insights on the true path to personal growth and fulfillment. He candidly discusses the misconception that external success can fix internal brokenness and emphasizes the importance of looking within to address our deepest pains. In this heartfelt conversation, you'll hear about the crucial role of self-awareness in healing, the power of supportive relationships, and the significance of having honest, uncomfortable conversations. Our guest also touches on the various roles we play due to childhood conditioning and how breaking free from these can lead to genuine happiness. We're going to explore practical advice for parents, couples, and individuals struggling with self-growth, addiction, or relationship issues. Our guest, Mr. Thomas Gagliano, holds a master's degree in social work and a BA in business. He has a background in business and has used that knowledge to create a therapy practice that focuses on family dynamic issues. He specializes in working with parents relating to childhood messages and how one's experience shapes their world view. He discusses challenging issues from his vast professional background while interweaving his own experiences to crystallize concepts. He is a sought-after expert and speaker and has appeared on many television and radio shows, including The Jenny McCarthy Show, Dr. Oz, TD Jakes, and Sirius XM Radio. He also hosts weekly Instagram shows at The Problem Was Me and has produced several educational podcasts that can be found on iTunes. Mr. Gagliano is the best-selling author of The Problem Was Me with Dr. Abraham Tversky. He has provided trainings at many universities and community-based organizations regarding parenting and family dynamic problems. When he is not training, speaking, or writing, he provides family-focused individual and couples therapy In all of his professional endeavors, his focus is to give back what he has learned to assist others in finding balance and create a healthier self. So, whether you're facing infidelity, trying to improve communication with your partner, or seeking to understand your children's needs better, this episode is packed with valuable nuggets of wisdom. I was very honored to meet Tom and have him on the show. So, without any further ado, Mr. Tom Gagliano. Welcome back to Radiant Mom Rising podcast. I am truly honored today to have a very special guest. Tom, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And for anyone who doesn't know who Tom is, he is a best-selling author as well as a sought-after expert and speaker. He's appeared on many television and radio shows, including the Jenny McCarthy Show, Dr. Oz, TD Jakes, and Sirius XM Radio. I know you do some Instagram lives as well and so much more. Your two books, The Problem Is Me and Don't Put Your Crap in Your Kid's Diaper, the cleanup cost can last a lifetime. First of all, let me just say I love the titles of those. And I also would love for the listeners to learn a little bit more about you and your history and your background that led you down this journey to do what you do today.
Well, I'm honored to be on your show. And my book is not about putting down parents. I want everybody to hear that. It's about taking the positive messages that our parents gave us and holding on to them, but also looking over the messages that maybe aren't helping us in our lives that we have to challenge. So I want to say that first. I'm honored to be here. So real quick about me, I have a master's degree in social work. I facilitate groups for recovering addicts, for couples as well. I'm a recovering addict. And to say this in a quick way, about 20 years ago, I moved away from the world of business and I had two goals. One goal was to give my children what I didn't have, and that was the positive and healthy messages that I received in my own childhood. And my other goal was to help other people that were sabotaging the happiness in their life, but didn't know why. Why every time they got close to someone, why every time they sabotaged it, how they were showing up in their life. We don't always show up the way we think we are. So I try to help people build that self-awareness so they know the better actions to take. And that's what I've been doing in the last few years. And yeah, I was on these shows in Sirius Radio and getting myself out there. But one of the things that I always stress is a child that doesn't feel like they matter to their parents won't stop loving their parents. They'll stop loving themselves. That is the main statement I always tell people, because if a child feels that way, they'll grow up fragmented. They'll split into two. They'll show the world one piece of themselves, but there's an inside piece they feel like they're just not good enough. And I can tell you from my childhood, as much as my dad was an alcoholic and a gambler and all the stuff he did, I felt like I failed him. Because at an early age, children are egocentric. We feel like we failed them until we grow up and we start to realize, no, I didn't fail them. At 8 years old, 9 years old, I didn't say, oh, gee, my dad needs Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see that. All I saw was that if I was a better kid, maybe my father wouldn't be doing these things. That is what I want to bring home here. Even parents that work all the time and are trying to bring a better life to their children, a new home, a school, college. Don't assume you know how your child sees this. The child may feel, why isn't mom and dad paying more attention to me? What's wrong with me? And I mean, even good parents. So be aware of the messages that we're giving our children that we're not aware of. We don't have to give our children quantity time, but give them quality time. Talk to them. What are you doing? How are you doing in school? Best part of your day, worst part of your day. Talk to your children.
That is such a powerful message right there. I love it. And it's so important. It's something I want to bring awareness to as well, because I grew up with a single mom. And she loved us the best that she could, of course, and she does. She's like my best friend. I love her to death. But I also had a dad who was very negligent. He was in and out of our lives and practically abandoned us at a young age. And that had a big impact on me because it caused me to have insecurities and
That's
low
right.
self-esteem. It's about I didn't understand. I didn't get that role model of how a man should treat a woman because unfortunately the only little bit of role model I had was awful man that my mom dated. So that didn't help me either. And then, I had this abandonment that followed me. We don't realize, how much our childhood impacts who we become, whether we realize it or not. And I love that when you talked about the sabotaging right there. So, where were you in your life when you finally started getting this realization that this has been a part of you and how you were behaving? And then that made you, pursue going to school for social work and things like that? Or was that part of you understanding? If you,
It gets to the point where you just get tired of living
yeah.
the life you're living. And
Mhm.
as they say in the 12 steps, you
Yeah.
get sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean,
Yeah.
what happened to me is my wife and children left me. And at that devastation, it created a miracle. I said to
Yeah.
myself, you know what? I could change the world or I could change me. And I started to get therapy, help, and do the things that I teach other people now to
Yeah.
better their life so they don't sabotage the intimacy in their life. And that's when I went back to school. I wrote my books. I was a best speaker and all the other things that happened. But I had to go through that pain first to understand that my way wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And life showed me it wasn't working. It wasn't anybody else. And that's when I started to get help. And I kind of knew it's not so much my clients, what they're saying. I know what they're not saying. I hear their pain, even the words they're not saying. And I always say, for many people, they say, please help me, but don't get too close. I'm afraid to trust you. And that's a big piece in people's journey is trust. Many of us came from childhoods where we lost trust for those caregivers in our life. But now, if we want to heal, and we're not responsible for what happened to us in childhood, but if you want to have a better life,
Yeah.
you got to take responsibility for healing whatever wounds awakened in your childhood.
That's absolutely, yeah. I love it. And that's so true. And that's what so many of us well, my goal too is to reach a younger generation of this too. Cause I do meet a lot of people who find this out later on in life. And you're right. It's never too late to change. It's awesome to finally acknowledge that stuff. But like my hope is to get this messaging around moms, even while we have young children ourselves, because
Yes.
my goal with my kids is to always build that relationship up, teach them self-love, teach them self-care, things that I didn't have. And so you talked about the positive messages and things like that. Expand on that a little bit more of, how you help people and what some of the messaging and things that people can do, starting now that can really help strengthen all sorts of relationships that they have.
Well, first with a client, I hope that they have the willingness to get help.
Yeah.
A lot of us have the willingness not to get help, but to take direction. So let me rephrase that. Many of us have the willingness to get help, but we don't all have the willingness to take direction, to challenge those messages in childhood. Again, I came from a childhood where if I was to cry or show emotion, my dad would call me his little girl. That was his statement to me. Come on, little girl. Come on, little girl. So the message to me was if I should show emotion in my adult life, something was wrong. I was defective. I wasn't good enough. And I still, to this day, with all the therapy and all the 12-step rooms, I still fight showing emotions, feeling like I'm defective. And I'll just tell you, Mary, I had this situation with my son where his dog died and he was about 10 years old. And I remember walking into his room when this happened. And I remember saying, I got to do something here. I could tell he's in pain, but he's not showing it. And I remember doing something very uncomfortable. I walked over, I put his arms around my chest, it's put his head on my shoulder, and he started to cry. And he started to bawl his eyes out. And I remember, as uncomfortable that was, I did know that I was giving my son a safe place, a place to cry in his father's arms. This wasn't a place I ever had, but I was giving him permission to just feel his feelings instead of you're a little girl. These are the things I try to tell my clients. When your child suffers or struggles with school, with whatever it is, we all want to take the pain from our child away immediately. We don't want to see them in pain. We love them. But sometimes, before you do that, a nice hug will help them feel like what they're going through, it's okay.
And what have you noticed as far as through those experiences as a dad yourself now? How has that changed the outcome of your relationships and how your kids perceive things and are perceiving life? What would you say from your even your clients that you've worked with?
My children, and I tell my clients the same thing. Don't rush in and fix them. You got plenty of time for that. My children will come to me with everything.
Mm.
My daughters tell me more than I want to know. Okay? Because there's a point, it's like, I don't have to know all of this stuff. I'm good to go, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And our children will
Trust.
teach us what they need if we hear them. And just a quick story with my younger child at a baseball game. I don't know if I told you this before, and he was pitching and he didn't pitch well. And he was really down. He was 10 years old, 12, a little league game. And I went to the dugout after the game. I knew he'd be mad. He couldn't get the ball over the plate. And I walked in with all his friends to pick him up. And I said to myself, should I be his therapist? Should I tell him, how do you feel? Should I put my coaching hat on and say, hey, let me help you with your follow through? And I'm like trying to think of all of these wonderful ways to help him. When I walked in to the dugout, he looked at me and he said, Dad, I need a hug. That's all he needed was a hug. Not a therapist, not a pitching coach. And I remember hugging him. And I remember all the kids in the dugout looking at this like, wow, this doesn't make sense. And I said, how many of these kids, when they're down, when they're not feeling good about themselves, need a hug? Plenty of time to be a therapist, pitching coach. So what I tell parents is this: pause. When you see a child struggle, take a moment. Think about what you would have wanted to hear from your parents at that age. Let that compassion guide what you say and the way you say it. Because at that time, when they're struggling, I know I would have only wanted a hug. All I would have wanted was, hey, how you doing, kid? You're going to be okay. I'm here for you. The rest of the stuff could come later.
Yeah. And it's so, if you really think about this world today, that is a driving force for so many of us. We want approval. We want to feel heard. We want to feel seen. We want to feel like we matter. And a lot of that, when you don't, you just talking about that, it's like, yeah, it starts from a child. Like that's what all a child ever craves. Like I know that with my little kids, they always want mommy. They always they want to be, with mommy. They want a hug. They want to be loved on. They want attention. They fight for my attention sometimes. And it's like I see that, and it makes me understand like why in today's world you see so many people doing desperate things because they just are just sure craving it so much instead of finding it within themselves. And I think that's something that we need to work on, is realizing that we already have that acceptance, because if anything, we need to have that self-acceptance first and foremost, and stop worrying about what anyone else thinks and just be true to who we are. And then you be that role model for your kids to show them that they get to be themselves, that they get to be amazing just the way they are and love themselves. And I think that's such a powerful message right there, especially. And I know that you also, when you work with clients, you have certain assessments that you work with them and questions that you ask them to help them to kind of dig deeper. Would you like to share a little bit about that and how that helps them to really learn more about that awareness?
Well, the first thing is I
Yeah.
tell them, look, the most important relationship you have is not the one with your wife, your husband, your parents, your children. It's the one you have with yourself.
Yeah.
And if I'm broken inside, there's nothing out there that's going to fix it. As a recovering addict, I know that. I know that I thought money was going to fix me, and I was a pretty damn good businessman. I thought all of these things were going to fit. And I think that's what's the problem with the world a little bit, is we think outside stuff is
Yeah.
going to make us whole. It doesn't fix what's broken inside. So if you want to get better, don't look out there. Look and see what's broken in here. If I'm working on my foot and it's my shoulder that's the problem, I ain't getting anywhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So I got to first teach my clients self-awareness.
Yeah.
What is it that's hurting your life? What is it? And then we go into what actions can you take? And I believe healing is always a we process, not a me process. I believe that all of us need supportive people. I call them witnesses. Now, those aren't the people we go to that we feel worse when we speak to them. Those aren't the people we go to that we feel judged when we're speaking to them. These are the people we go to that we feel better. And I always tell my clients, when you're talking to those that you trust, don't just say, what should you do? Ask them, what did you do if you felt these things? If you had a fight with your husband, your wife, if you felt disrespected by your children, if you put down boundaries and people cross them, what did you do? Because, I'm mentioning a lot of addicts in this session, but it's not addicts. All the roles we're set up to play, the people pleaser role, the caretaker role, the invisible role, the defiant role. I could go on and on and on. And I see all the roles that they were set up to play in childhood. For me, because my father was never around and he was doing always the wrong thing, I was parentified. I was my mother's keeper. My job was, if I didn't make my mother happy, I couldn't find happiness. Now, how did that affect me? Well, as I grew up, I found I wanted to find happiness in other people. No, that doesn't work.
Nope.
I had to find happiness within Tom first.
Yeah.
And we talk about those roles in the beginning. And when I have the trust of people, and if they're willing to take direction, miracles happen, truly. But if they're not willing to take direction, I ain't so good.
Yeah. And unfortunately that is on the person, and that's all we can do. We can put ourselves out there and be that support for people, because I truly believe in that. I know I wouldn't be where I am, because I am a recovering addict as well. And, addiction comes in so many ways. I mean, there's sex addiction. Yeah, exactly. There's addiction to dopamine. There's addiction to everything. People have addictions all over and in so many different directions. And all it is it's, for me, my addiction to drugs was just a way to numb the pain. It was my answer at the time. Little did I know that all I was doing was stuffing it more and more down. It always came back 10 times worse, sometimes even afterwards. And so, but having the support is a huge part of making transformations in your life, and surrounding yourself with the like-minded people, the people who will support you, and taking risk. I mean, life is all about taking chances and getting out of your comfort zone. And it is challenging. It's hard, I think, for people like us who want to help so many other people. And we know the changes that are possible. And then you meet these people who, like, how you can help them. You see that they have these needs, but then they don't want to take the action. They don't really follow through. And it's hard. I can imagine how challenging that's been for.
It is. And,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of what I share is my personal experience.
Yeah.
And I tell people, listen, I understand how you feel, because I felt that. I'm not reading this from a master's degree book I got in Rutgers in college. Yeah. I felt that. I know how hard it is to have uncomfortable conversations. I know how hard it is to share your feelings. I know how hard it is to believe that a conversation can help, even though you believe all I'm going to do is get angry, or all I'm going to do ain't going to help, or they're only going to blame me, or they're going to do that. I get it. But uncomfortable conversations, when you do it like an adult, not a scared little kid, will create closeness with your spouse if they're willing to also do it with you. It's another expression in the program: if you work it, it works. Yeah. But who wants to have uncomfortable conversations? They're what it says, uncomfortable.
Yeah. And yet it's the best thing ever. I know personally with my husband, we recently we've grown so much over our time together. And I feel like we're only like newlyweds still. Like after we're on almost 6 years of marriage and 9 years of being together. And we have 2 kids together. And then, my oldest son that he adopted, that's his son, as far as he's concerned. It is his son. Right. He is his true father. But yeah, and but it's so beautiful to see that, the strength and that we have from just communication. And I even told him, I was like, I got to bring you on the show. We got to have a conversation about communication, because I think that's something that so many of us struggle with, because we don't want to get, we feel like it's confrontation. We're scared of confrontation. We're scared of sharing how we feel. We don't know how to express it, or we feel like we're not allowed to express it. But yet that's the most important thing that you need to strengthen any relationship you have. And I'm proof. It really is amazing. It's truly transformed how we are with each other, because I think people don't understand, when you don't talk, you can only assume, and assuming is will get you in trouble every time. When you just assume you think you know what somebody knows or is thinking or feeling, that's going to get you in trouble. Just like you don't want them to assume that they know. You want that. I think sometimes as women, we tend to expect or hope that somebody knows and can read our mind, but you guys are, no one's mind readers. That's why we need to talk about these things. And it's so wonderful when you find that right partner who's willing to meet you the halfway and you guys can share together and really open up.
Hey there, aspiring entrepreneurs. Ready to turn your free time into a flourishing digital marketing business? Introducing Lipo Max, your comprehensive all-in-one package for launching a successful venture. With Lipo Max, you'll get access to over 200 in-depth, beginner-friendly training videos tailored to your needs. Plus, enjoy lifetime access with continuous course updates, weekly training calls, and ongoing community support. All without any monthly fees or extra charges. And the best part? You'll benefit from a high-demand digital product, the course, expertly crafted and ready for immediate sale. Yes, that means you earn 100% profit on every sale. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to transform your free time into a profitable business. Join LipoMax today and watch your dreams take flight. Click on the link in the show note today to learn more.
And I tell my clients, in just what you're saying, but in a different terminology. I'll say, okay, you're not talking to your wife, husband. What story are you making up? What story are you making up? Well, I think if I talk to her, she'll be mad. I think if I talk to her, she'll blame me. I think if I talk to him, he's going to shut down and share feelings. You could be right, but you have to have the conversation. And if the story you're making up is true, well, you're right. If the story you're making up is false, how are you going to know that? How are you going to know that unless you have the conversation? And then you could put some boundaries down. Listen, if I talk to you and I tell clients all the time, start the conversation right. If you start it wrong, you're going to do a destructive dance every time.
Yeah.
Start it right. I'm having this conversation with you because I really want to work on a relationship, because I love you, because I want to get closer to you. This is why I'm having the conversation. When you said this to Tim, when you said it to Beth, when you did this, when you did that, I felt like I didn't matter. I'm not saying you meant to do that. Here's how I felt. Have the conversation. But what I notice with people is they need me to coach them through this. It's kind of like learning a different language. You could learn a different language with books, but it's helpful sometimes if somebody guides you through it. So I try to give them a blueprint on how to talk to each other. Now, I deal with a lot of people that suffer from infidelity, which is a much, much deeper pain. But even that, I've had a good amount of success with individuals that are willing to take direction. Now, if you have an affair and you don't stop it, well, there's not a damn thing I can do. But if you arrest whatever the addiction is, and I believe infidelity, not all the time, sometimes you just marry the wrong person, it happens. But other times it could be addictive. So I tried, if it is, then that's my branch. You want to stop this? You want to heal your relationship? I can help you, but you got to take direction. And I put a lot of men or women in my groups that suffer from this with other like-minded people, so they know the steps that have healed their relationship.
Yeah, the community is so important because you're right. It makes you feel like you're not alone on this journey. You get to realize like, oh, and you get other people's perspectives like and experiences. And that's all important on your journey of growth. If you're ever trying to make changes in your life, you need that in order to keep going because it is hard. When you've been conditioned your whole life, and a lot of times not even really knowing and understanding the subconscious programming and the stuff that happened as a child that you were taught and shown. But when you have that built up so long and then all of a sudden you start getting, it's like, yeah, you get this realization that, oh, I don't have to be this way anymore. I don't have to live life this way. That doesn't mean it's just going to change overnight. It does take work. It takes so much, but boy, is it worth it. You know? So,
That's the key. And a lot of people don't get the rewards until they work it. Unfortunately, if I could shove the rewards at them early, they would trust the process more, but they don't until they work it. And I've had many couples come to me, even those that suffer from infidelity, and they say to me, Tom, we have a closer relationship than we ever had, even before the infidelity. Forget about it. If it wasn't for the infidelity, we would not be this close today.
Yeah.
And that is, again, if you work it, it works, but you got to take direction. That's the problem.
Yeah. And because like you say, not easy for everybody, but it's so wonderful to see that you've helped so many people on that path and have helped to strengthen, because that's at the end of the day, we want to help people to succeed and to thrive in life, because this is it. This is all we get. And we want to make it the best that we can be. And I think that's so wonderful what you do. And for any moms who are listening, like, what would be, from your experience and just everything that you work with women on that end, like giving a male perspective of things, like what's some tip, like some advice that you would share with moms from a male's perspective?
So if we're talking about infidelity,
Mm-hmm.
it's to understand that you didn't create it. It wasn't that you weren't pretty enough, sexy enough, smart enough. It had nothing to do with you. And to understand that you have to work on yourself, even if your partner is the culprit, the victim, still work on yourself, because you deserve a better life. You deserve to be happy. But what I tell both sides is this: working on yourself is hard. It takes courage, diligence, and I'm not for a minute going to tell anybody that it's easy. But what I can tell you is, don't wait till you feel like doing it, because you'll never feel like doing it. Sometimes you got to get your feet there, even if your head is telling you not to go there. Take the first steps, whether you feel like it or not. And I always say in all my podcasts with you, with all others, take what you can that you can use here. You don't have to take everything I said as being right. If you can get some nuggets of wisdom in this podcast from me and you, take it with you. Leave the rest.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. That's such wonderful, wonderful advice. And I hope anyone's listening, seriously, take it. Find a way that works for you. And that's something I talk about as well in a lot of areas. Like, what works for some people is not going to always work for other people. And this is what is so cool about putting yourself out there and learning and meeting new people and hearing new things and picking up and trying new things. Sometimes you could try something and it works or it doesn't, or sometimes it's awesome and it works really, really well. And then it's like, oh yes, now I can, implement this into my life. And so that's really neat to get these different perspectives and hear that. And I love your message too, to women, about the fact that it's not about them. And that just goes so much further into the projections that we place on people when we are feeling things about ourselves, and how that, affects so many of us. And I just want to shine on that, because we do tend to take things personally, especially women. We're very emotional creatures. We do tend to take things a lot personally, and men do too. And that's why I think, like you say, when you're trying to have those uncomfortable conversations, men can get very defensive. It's totally normal, and I get it, because they feel like they're being attacked. And that's something that, as part of, like you say, having that structure of starting the conversation right matters. And I think that's awesome. And even on the parenting side, this all correlates, I feel like. And, what kind of advice, as far as moms who may be dealing with just struggling with young children, maybe, not the best of marriages or relationships with themselves, with others, like, what would you say to them?
I would say to get professional help. Don't try to work on your children first or your husband first. Work on yourself first. See what you need to do to better your life. To be happy. You're the key ingredient in all these relationships. You're the common denominator. And it's important to work on yourself first. As far as couples go, I tell couples all the time, they're not just in a relationship with their partner, but they're in a relationship with their partner's childhood messages as well. And their partner is in a relationship with your childhood messages as well. They're going to show up. So get to know each other's childhood a little bit, so you understand where they're showing up. I came from a brutal childhood. My wife could tell me, you forgot to take out the garbage, and I might hear she called me an idiot, a moron, and I'm a defective husband. And I sit back and go, whoa, that's not what she said. That's what I heard. So be aware of the childhood messages, and remember, again, work on yourself. And if there's nothing wrong with getting professional help, there's nothing wrong with, if you have a problem affording it, Al-Anon is great. All of 12-step meetings are for free, but it'll build your self-awareness. And with self-awareness, trust me, you're going to know the better choices to take in your life with your children and your husband and your parents.
Oh, true that, true that. And tell us a little bit more too about your books. The Problem Is Me and the Don't Put Your Crap in Your Kid's Diaper. I can't help it. I love those titles. Tell us a little bit more about those books and how those came to be.
Well, The
What's about it?
Problem Was Me, ironically, was written with Dr. Abraham Tversky, who is a jewel, wonderful rabbi in the rabbinical world. He passed away. He was a great man. And in the 12-step program, I was a speaker and I helped a lot of Jewish people, rabbis, believe it or not, even Gagliano figured that one out. But they went to him and they said, listen, this guy has helped so many people. He's writing a book. Can you help him? And I connected with him. The book came out. The Problem Was Me. It was a bestseller right off the bat. I knew a lot of people. I did book tours, whatever. It became a bestseller. And don't put it's funny, God has a way of pushing you in areas. I never thought I'd be a parenting guy. Are you kidding me? Really? Or a couples guy with what I grew up with. I didn't know the first thing about what intimacy. I didn't know how to spell intimacy. Okay. So for me, I was running groups for men, and all of a sudden their wives wanted to meet me because I saw such a difference in their husbands. And then I started into couples, and then the couples said, can you talk to my children, or could you help us with our children? And then I got to write the book, Don't Put Your Crap in Your Kid's Diaper. So this has all been a journey that I did not plan.
Okay.
Yeah, he's up there laughing, I guess. I'm not sure. But that wasn't something that I planned at all. It just came about the way things come about. And that's basically what's happened.
Oh, and I love it. And you know what's so amazing about what you just said, and again, this is what I love about God and how that works. And when you become more and more true to yourself and you get in alignment with who you are and live life authentically like that, things come to you. You don't have to go searching for things. They are
Amazing.
you attract it, and God will guide you. And he look at like you're a prime example of that. He walked you through. You didn't go out seeking and planning, oh, I'm going to be a couple's there, and it's so neat to see how that all works and how important it is. Like you say, the biggest message I get out of this is that, again, we all have to build that self-awareness and work on ourselves. That's where it starts, point blank. And you have to really,
Absolutely.
really start working to shift those beliefs that are no longer serving us and start creating ones that do, because that's when things are going to start. Doors of opportunities will open, things will happen for us. And we just have to be willing to walk the path and just go with it.
And 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 sometimes follow our feet, because our head is full of messaging, childhood messaging, intrusive messaging, things that core beliefs that were wrong. And sometimes we have to be open-minded enough to follow our feet. Look, at the end of the day, if 20 years ago you would have told me I was going to be doing this, I would have tried to find you a therapist, to be honest with you. I really would have. I would have said, listen, here's the name of 3 therapists. You really need some help. So this is the thing in life, you just don't know. And I don't know from here. I mean, I remember I went on Sirius Radio one day with Jenny McCarthy, and she loved my stuff. And she told Wake Up with Taylor, John Fugelsang, Jenny Hutt. And all of a sudden, I'm on Sirius Radio every week. And I'm like, I was just in 12-step fellowship speaking. How did this all happen? And you just don't know. But the important thing is when you give a message to people and they feel like you're talking to them, not to an audience, to them, when they really say, wow, this guy's talking about me. And that's the best emails I can get from people, that they feel like I'm talking to them. And the second best emails I can get that I love, or when I'm speaking to couples, is when they tell me, Tommy, we're changing the messages that were handed down from generation to generation to my kids. Right now, I'm giving them unconditional love. Right now, they share their feelings and I validate their feelings. I don't try to change them. Right now, they feel like they matter. And when I have couples come to me and tell me that they're doing this, and I have to tell you, one quick story is my youngest son. I went to a PTA meeting with the teacher, and I was sitting there, and after the PTA meeting, the teacher said, Mr. Gagliano, I want to speak to you for a minute. And right away I said, oh boy, what did my son do? Because let me tell you, when I was young, I was in trouble 25 hours a day with people all the time, fighting, getting a mess. So I went to see this teacher afterwards, and I was like, oh boy, what did he do? She turned to me and she goes, "What's your secret?" And I said, "What?" She goes, "I never saw a son talk so lovingly about their father and so respectful about their father as you do." She goes, "What's your secret?" I didn't know what to say because I didn't look at myself
Mm.
from being a recovering addict. I always had this in my book, this warden, the problem was me, on my shoulder, always telling me what I was doing wrong, never told me anything I did right, always sabotaging every part of my life. And I call him the warden, his fictitious character in my book. And
Ah,
I didn't know what to tell her other than I said, well, I'm curious with him. We talk a lot, we speak a lot. But she just knocked me off my chair. I just wasn't expecting that. I was expecting the complete
wow.
opposite. And that's something that I always cherish. I've done a lot of really good things in my life, but that PTA meeting, for some reason, is something that is just ingrained in my head, and I'll never forget it. I'll never
Ah,
forget it.
God, I bet not. I bet I could. I mean, I can't imagine because I know how that feels. Like in my own way, like I have a 16-year-old, and I know just knowing who I was at his age and the drugs and the partying and the person that I was, and just seeing my son who is just he's in marching band, he's straight A student. He wouldn't even dream of touching drugs. Like, I've been so honest with him and real with him about that. I very value being open about sex and drugs and talking with my son about these things, and we had those conversations. And but I love that when he comes home and I'm like, how was your day? It's not like, oh, it was good. You get that a lot of times from boys, not him. Oh, we did this in this math class, and I made 100 in biology, like, like I did this, or and I
Beautiful.
value that. It makes me so proud as a parent to know that from where I came from and how hard my life used to be, how much I've turned it around, and how I'm already seeing it impacting how the outcome of my child. Because
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
isn't
It's
it?
beautiful.
It truly is. And so it excites me to hear this and to know. I mean, like I said, oh yeah, always embrace those moments. It is beautiful, and it's nice to be raising good kids in this world. It
Yeah,
truly
yeah.
is. It's so
Because
important.
we
Yeah.
have to. There's a lot of stuff going on in this world that's crazy.
Yeah.
And we have to raise kids that are resilient, that know how to
Mhm.
handle things. I mean, when my son in eighth grade told me that his friends smoke pot, marijuana, whatever they call it,
Mhm.
the first thing I wanted to tell him was, I want you to go in your room for another 3 years. I'll let you out in 3 years from now. That's what I wanted to say. But I told him, I
Yeah.
said, let's talk about it. What do you know about pot, marijuana? Let's go on the computer. Let's talk about it. And I always give your child choices. I tell my son, listen, if you choose to break the law, you choose to go to jail. That's on you. It's your
Mhm.
choice, not mine. And it's the same thing with all our kids. If they choose not to come in at the time that we tell them to come in at, or they choose not to put their toys away, whatever it is, that's your choice. You can't go out tomorrow. You can't play with your toys tomorrow. We have to teach our children to be ready to face the world too.
Yeah.
And remember that there's consequences. If you choose A, you have the
Yep.
consequences with B. And this
Absolutely.
is what I try to teach my children because I never had that. I was in trouble all the time.
Ah,
And thrown on top of that, I was molested by a priest and all this other stuff
wow.
that happened in my life. I think that if it wasn't for sports in my life, because God gave me the ability to be very good in sports,
Mhm.
if it wasn't for sports, I know for sure I would have been locked up or worse. And this was my childhood. Nobody came to me in my childhood and said, "Hey kid, how you doing? How you
Mhm.
feeling? You okay? You look sad. You look." Never got those messages. Those simple messages
Yeah.
are just absolutely so important in your
Aren't they though?
childhood.
It is. It really is. And it's nice to be a parent ourselves doing that for our kids, because that's all we can do for them now is give them that better upbringing and put some positivity into them that we didn't get for ourselves. And I love to see that even through you going through the molestation, that you still have a relationship with God, because I know sometimes that can hurt that.
No, it does.
It
It
does.
does. It took
Hmm.
me a while to
Yeah.
believe that this God
Yeah.
that I grew up with wasn't an addictive, horrible person. And
Mm,
I put that in my book. I went to a
yeah.
Catholic school that was so
Ugh.
abusive in so many ways. I believed God was a vindictive, abusive human being. And I had to change that perception.
Yeah.
And it took me years to change that perception, but I did it. And now I pray all the time. I'm spiritual. But in the beginning, I had issues with God. I really did. I believed that he was out to get me. And
Yeah.
I had to work on that piece.
Oh, that's that. I'm glad you were able to, because I know with me, I did not like growing up in church. I didn't really go to church much. The few that I did, I hated it. I just really grew up hating religion a lot and things like that. But God found me, and He has shown me a different way, and I have a very personal relationship with Him. It's just how I am. He's my spiritual God, and I'm my Father, and I love Him, and I love to see people getting outside of the religion side of things and understanding that He is so much more than a building
Absolutely.
than those people. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that is nice. And yeah, it's amazing to see these changes. And I'm so honored to have you coming on here and speaking your story and sharing these insights for moms and I know we had talked about a little bit about, the speaking notes that you talk about with certain people as far as when, okay, for instance, the social media. I see that that's one of like an aspect that you talk to people about when it comes to social media. How would you say in today's world, because obviously technology is there, it's there whether we like it or not. And how would you share with parents as far as social media? How would you handle that?
I think that we are so addicted to digital. You talk about addictions,
Oh yeah.
so addicted to digital products. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I see it with my family too. Sometimes we go to eat and I see everybody's on their phones, and I put out a group text while we're having dinner, put down the phones, everyone, because it is so addictive. You have kids today that are 4 years old. My granddaughter, she's 2.5, and she's scrolling and she's hitting things. And see, people understand you get addicted to sounds, to beeps, to this, to that. We have an issue in our country. I speak about this as well. It's called, I get this wrong, dysthymia, digital dysthymia, that there's actually kids in high school today, women, girls in high school that are getting plastic surgery because they want to look like what they see in Instagrams. I mean, this is such bad messaging. These are girls that are going to base their whole life on how they look. Has nothing to do with anything more. And it's really, really sad because I spoke to some plastic surgeons and they said the increase in teenage plastic surgery for women is insane, and we are getting addicted. But here's the problem. How do you tell your child to get off the phone if you can't get off the phone? How do you tell your child to stop smoking if you're puffing away? It really it doesn't work. So parents have to start first before they're going to give those messages to their children. And I know it's addictive. Look, I'm a public figure, and the truth is, and I'm glad I didn't grow up with cell phones, thank God. So I'm doing the things I need to do business wise,
Hmm.
but I don't get enjoyment, thank God, because I didn't grow up with that. I mean, I would rather watch a Gunsmoke Western and have Gun Will Travel, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, and that'll bring me more enjoyment than sitting on my phone.
Yeah.
But that's my generation. The
Yeah.
generation, the millennials and everything, they're getting addicted to their phone. And I don't think I go to the gym in the morning. It's hysterical. I go to the gym, and as
Mhm.
I'm going to the gym, I'm always saying, "Good morning. How you doing?" What? And they don't know how to answer it. And they look at me like, "Good morning." Wait, let me look and see what I have to say back. It's
Yeah.
like, "Good morning. How you doing?" What do I say back? They look at me like they're in shock.
Yeah.
Nobody knows just how to, hey, how you doing? Have a good day. Good morning. We're getting crucified with
Hmm.
these digital phones. We really are.
Oh yeah, interviewed one time this woman who was a teacher for over 30 years, and she said the difference between she said one of the things she used to always do was every time the students came in class, she'd be like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And she always expected them to answer. She said the very last day that she worked when she was retiring, she said one kid was able to answer her. Where before every single kid was always able to answer her.
Yeah.
And these are like fourth graders, like these are young children. And so it is so important. This is such a huge thing going on in this world today. And I grew up, in I feel like a cool generation before the cell phones and stuff as well, where internet just kind of started being a thing when I was a
Right.
teenager. So
Right.
it was like super new. I mean, we had the whole AOL, like taking forever just to download a song.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I had that experience, but I was already in my teen years, so I never had the cell phone and things like that. Because you're right, as much as I see with the bullying and the people I can't imagine, they're already so underdeveloped. And this is why I don't like this the push that people have with that movement right now in this world, because it's like, especially with the children, like it's so dangerous because some of the things that they're doing you can't reverse, and they're so underdeveloped to make not be able to make decisions for themselves yet, and they're getting exposed to all this stuff and this agendas and these things. And yeah, it's really scary, isn't it? That my hope, all we can do, and my hope is to teach my kids as much positivity and to love themselves, to accept themselves for who they are, and like you say, think for themselves, research,
Yeah,
research,
yeah,
and yeah, and be mindful of that.
yeah. I mean, it's. I see more depression,
Oh,
anxiety, suicidal dependencies than I've ever seen before. It's really that what I'm actually seeing with young kids. That's why all of a sudden my clients are bringing me their kids. I never did this before, but I kind of know
yeah.
what it feels like to hate to not like yourself inside, so I can help them, and I've been pretty successful in helping kids. But I never saw so many kids with such depression, anxiety, and the first thing I would tell them is get off of the social media, get off
Mhm.
of it. You're comparing yourself to images, and if that's how you rate happiness,
Yeah. It's a
you,
losing
you
battle.
yeah,
It is.
yeah,
And that's why, like I said, now for adults who are there, I mean, it's a beautiful way to get our messaging out. What's sad is that there is a great way of technology helping others, reaching more people around the world, spreading good positivity. If that's what, and that's what I try to stick to. That's my goal. I want to bring that positivity message. Like, let's us get loud. Let us
yeah,
get loud, and bring some more, positivity to this world, and, unite us more instead of the division that's happening a lot. So I very much understand that. And I know it's hard because, me, it's my kids. I work from home. I have kids here. And yes, TV is a thing that helps me, but my thing is educational stuff. I love educational, like games, things like that. I do my best to limit that time, but my favorite thing is when they go outside and I just see them playing with the bubbles and splash pads, running around with the dog, us playing fetch. Like, those are the moments that I truly value it, because I was a kind of girl. I went outdoors. I was really tomboy growing up. So I was always outdoors, going to the creeks, climbing trees, disappearing until it was dark. And then I would come home.
yeah, yeah.
That's how I was raised too. And
Me too.
I loved it. It was so fun and adventurous. And yeah. Oh gosh, I strive for that with my kids. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing better than outside. Yep.
Awesome. And so before we end here, I just want to give you an opportunity to share, like, if somebody wants to come learn more about you and how they can work with you, tell us a little bit where they can find you.
Yeah, well, if you go to if you want to hear my podcast, you put in The Problem Was Me on Spotify. If you want my website, it's theproblemwasme.com or thomasgagliano.com. And I have all my Sirius Radio interviews on there, Dr. Oz, all my speaking stuff. You could have some fun there. I have some I have digital products you can buy for parenting and or intimacy, couples, addiction is on there. You get my book on there if you want, either book. And you can also text me an email if you would like to, solicit my services on Thomas Gagliano, NJ@gmail.com. That's Thomas Gagliano, NJ@gmail.com. If you want to talk to me about setting up sessions for yourself or whomever, you could do that as well. But yeah, but have fun on my website and my podcast. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I will make sure to include all of this in the show notes to make it easy access for everybody as well. I
right.
cannot thank you enough for being a part of this show, Tom. Thank you so, so much. It's been greatly appreciated. And I hope to someday have you back and, like, let's reconnect again.
Anytime. I'm here to put it out there. I'm here to help others. I didn't go into this to make money. I went into this because I wanted to share some of my experience, strength, and hope that I had growing up. Sometimes when you come from really a tough childhood, you got a lot you can help people with, and that's what I do.
And talk about a beautiful way of turning that around, right? It's like, you're right. You have to sometimes go through the hard things to get to the other side, but you don't realize that God sometimes allows things like that to strengthen you so that you can help others. And that is such a wonderful decision to make, to, instead of being a victim to it, you become a hero and help others through it. So, oh, you're amazing. And
Thank you.
again, thank you so much for being
My
here.
honor. Thank you so much. And remember, devastations create miracles. They really do.
I love that.
Such an honor to have Tom on the show. I absolutely loved our conversation, just getting to meet him and know him better. Here are the key takeaways from today's episode. Children internalize both positive and negative messages from their parents. A child who doesn't feel valued by their parents often stop loving themselves instead of their parents. Understand the roles you were conditioned to play in childhood and how they impact your current behavior. It's essential to challenge and reevaluate the negative messages from childhood that affect adult behavior. True healing and happiness come from within, not from external validation or success. Understand what is causing pain in your life and work on healing those wounds. Focus on quality rather than quantity of time with your children. Engage in meaningful conversations with them to understand their feelings and experiences. Open, honest, and compassionate communication is key to healthy relationships. Healing is a collaborative process that involves supportive relationships. Be sure to surround yourself with people who make you feel heard, seen, and supported. Seek guidance from those who have successfully navigated similar challenges. And trust in the process of working through pain and discomfort to achieve personal growth. When children are struggling, offer emotional support through simple gestures like hugs. Personal transformation often comes through experiencing and overcoming pain. It is possible to build stronger relationships and a better life by addressing and healing past wounds. Teach children self-care and self-acceptance to prepare them for healthier adult relationships. Infidelity is not a reflection of your worth or attractiveness. It's crucial to work on yourself for personal happiness and fulfillment, even if the partner is the one who was unfaithful. You should take the first steps towards self-improvement, even if you don't feel like it, as waiting for the right moment may lead to never starting. Seeking professional help is beneficial and nothing to be ashamed of. Building self-awareness through professional help or support groups can lead to better decision-making and relationships. You can learn more about Thomas and all the amazing work he does by clicking on the links provided in the show notes. I highly recommend checking out his books and podcasts. Lastly, please subscribe to this podcast and leave me a review or 5-star rating so we can reach as many moms out there who need to be uplifted and supported. If you know anyone who would be impacted or just enjoy this episode, please be sure to share it with them. Can't thank you all enough for tuning in and joining me on this journey together. If you need any support as a life coach, I can help you. Feel free to visit me at marydiblecoaching.com to learn more about my services. Let's make the most of this one life we have and create something beautiful together. Until next time, much love.